It was the end of an era. On the 22nd of July 2025, the world went quiet for a moment. Rock fans, old and new, froze in disbelief. The man who once howled to the heavens with demonic power, the one the world called the Prince of Darkness, had finally fallen silent. Ozzy Osbourne was gone. At 76 years old, the legendary frontman of Black Sabbath, the very band that birthed heavy metal itself, was found unresponsive in his home. What began as a typical summer evening in Los Angeles would end as one of the darkest nights in rock history. Emergency services arrived swiftly, but Ozzy had already suffered an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. The doctors would later confirm what fans feared most: an acute myocardial infarction, a massive heart attack, had taken the life of one of music's most untamable spirits. The news spread like wildfire. Within minutes, social media flooded with tributes. From legends like Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler to the younger generation of metal artists who grew up idolizing him, everyone had the same reaction: disbelief. Ozzy Osbourne wasn't just another rock star. He was rock and roll personified, chaotic, wild, indestructible. The man who bit the head off a bat on stage had now been claimed by something far more ordinary, far more human: his own failing heart. But behind the madness and the myth, Ozzy had been fighting battles that most people never saw. For years he'd lived with Parkinson's disease, a cruel disorder that slowly strips away control from the body. In recent years he'd developed autonomic dysfunction, a complication that affected his blood pressure, heart rate, and other vital functions. Add to that the toll of decades of touring, the strain of drugs and alcohol, and the relentless weight of being the face of heavy metal itself, and the outcome becomes tragically inevitable. Just weeks before his death, however, Ozzy had done something that no one thought he would live long enough to do. The original Black Sabbath lineup, Ozzy, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, had come together one last time for a farewell concert in Birmingham, England, where it all began over half a century ago. It was meant to be a final celebration, a salute to the music that changed everything. Fans described it as emotional, haunting, and almost spiritual. Ozzy, despite his frailty, gave everything he had that night. He sang with trembling hands, but his voice, aged yet unmistakable, cut through the arena like a ghost of the past. When he sang Paranoid for the last time, the crowd knew they were witnessing history. After that night, Ozzy returned home to rest. Friends say he seemed peaceful, even content. He'd said his goodbyes to the stage, to the fans, and perhaps deep down, he knew his time was near. In his final interviews, he spoke openly about mortality, about the strange calm that comes with accepting the inevitable. "I've cheated death more times than I can count," he once said. "But when it comes for me, I hope I go out with a smile." And in a way he did. Sharon Osbourne, his wife of more than 4 decades, later revealed that in the hours before his cardiac arrest, Ozzy had been sitting in his favorite chair, listening to old records, some Sabbath, some Beatles, some blues classics that shaped his youth. He had been smiling, lost in the music that gave his life meaning. When his heart finally gave out, it wasn't during a show or in a hospital bed. It was at home, surrounded by the sound he loved most. The official cause was clear: a sudden cardiac arrest brought on by a heart attack. But for fans around the world, it felt like something deeper, like the final note in a song that had played for too long, too loud, and too beautifully to ever fade quietly. Ozzy's death hit hard, not just because of who he was, but because of what he represented. He was the last of a dying breed, a survivor from the wildest era in music history. The drugs, the booze, the scandals, he had outlived them all. When so many of his peers had fallen decades earlier, Bon Scott, Randy Rhoads, Lemmy Kilmister, Ozzy somehow kept going. Fans joked he'd never die, that he was immortal. But when the news came, the laughter stopped. Even immortals, it seemed, have to answer to time. His funeral, held privately in Los Angeles, was a somber yet defiant affair. The surviving members of Black Sabbath stood together once more, not on a stage, but beside a coffin draped in black velvet. Tony Iommi gave a short eulogy, his voice cracking as he said, "We created something out of darkness, and now that darkness has taken him home." Sharon, ever the strong one, stood beside her children, Jack and Kelly, her eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses, her hand resting on the casket. She whispered a final goodbye only she could hear. Across the world, fans gathered in candlelight vigils, from Birmingham to Tokyo to Rio de Janeiro. Outside the Black Sabbath bench in Birmingham's Broad Street, thousands sang together through tears. "Finished with my woman, 'cause she couldn't help me with my mind." For many, it wasn't just the end of Ozzy's story. It was the end of an era in music itself. In death, as in life, Ozzy Osbourne remained an enigma. The man who terrified parents in the 70s became a symbol of resilience and rebellion. The same voice that once screamed of hellfire later spoke of love, family, and redemption. He was proof that even the most broken souls can find light in the darkness, and perhaps that's why his death felt so poetic. The Prince of Darkness didn't die in chaos or scandal. He didn't fade away from overdose or fame. He simply stopped. His heart, which had beaten to the rhythm of rebellion for 76 years, finally rested. Today, when fans play Iron Man or War Pigs, they don't just hear a song, they hear a legacy. They hear the echoes of a man who turned his pain, madness, and faith into something eternal. The riffs still shake walls, the lyrics still speak truth, and Ozzy's voice, haunting and raw, still feels alive. Because legends like Ozzy Osbourne don't really die. They transform. They move from our world to the next. Their stories burned into the soul of every song, every scream, every shattered guitar chord. And somewhere, beyond the lights and the smoke, the Prince of Darkness takes the stage once again, his black coat glinting, his arms outstretched to a roaring crowd of souls who came before him. As the music begins, he smiles. Because for Ozzy Osbourne, death isn't silence. It's just another encore.